That's kind of true.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it is.
Wow.
It
it
is.
is. Come to think of it.
So think
Yep.
about how much Kool-Aid you had when you were a kid that had 3 cups of sugar and like colored water in it,
Hmm.
and no problem. But if you did the equivalent now with corn syrup, we would all be.
Yeah, corn syrup's nasty.
That could
Mhm.
be. I know, I remember Kool-Aid was 10 cents a packet. And so, like in the summer, we did drink a lot of Kool-Aid, but there
Yeah,
was sugar in it.
there was
Yeah.
everyone. I mean, think about the cereals we ate when we were kids. Everything was frosted, covered and frosted, and we could discuss like what the preservatives were doing to us, but it was all sugar. It was like actual sugar, not this
It was a lot
corn
of
syrupy
sugar.
stuff.
Listen,
How much?
Right.
we used to eat dirt too, and that's just that's not advisable either.
Yeah, I'm not
It
Not
saying
wasn't on
advisable
the food
either.
pyramid.
I'm
I
not
know we
saying
were
that sugar's
talking
good for
about
you.
these assault bows, and now we're at
I don't
sugared
know, man.
cereals,
We
We're
went
talking about
down
assault corn syrup.
we went down
assault
a
corn syrup.
rabbit trail.
Yeah, that's what. Well, you know us. That's what we
You
do.
never know when I'm talking to you guys
Never.
what's gonna happen.
Meet the Pressers with Matt Mallory and Klint Necro. Brought to you by Public Safety and Education and the Trigger Pressers Union.
Meet the Pressers is brought to you by Mantis X. Mantis X helps shooters suck less. Next Level Training. Makers of CERT training products. Saber Red. Saber Red has been making men and women cry since 1975. Meet the Pressers is also brought to you by these fine companies, shows, and organizations. Thank you.
Welcome, everybody, to Meet the Pressers. My name is Klint Macro, and this is my esteemed colleague, Matthew Mallory. Meet the Pressers we've been on the air for now 6 years, and it's a safe place for individuals, trigger pressers, to congregate and talk about guns, gear, gadget, political activism, education, religion, you name it, we talk about it. And today we have a very, very special guest. She's been a guest on the show. She's also been a guest host when I had my little sabbatical there. And we all know who she is, but Matt, why don't you do the proper introduction for us?
Absolutely. Sarah Joy, you are amazing in the industry. We're glad to have you and hold my guns and to talk about everything you have going on there and how we can help you get the word out and help when people want to keep their Second Amendment rights, but still keep their guns in safety in other people's hands. So welcome. Thanks for coming,
Thank you. So good to see you guys.
as like always. And you're going to be at SHOT Show?
I'm not sure yet.
Okay.
We're trying to figure out all of our funding stuff.
Logistics. Gotcha.
Yeah, logistics.
For sure.
So
So
yes, but it's
speaking of
always
that,
fun at shot.
what do you have going on as far as that? What can people do to help out? Well, first off, tell the people that haven't listened or heard about your company, your organization, tell them about the organization and then what they could do to help.
Sounds good. Order of operations, right?
Absolutely.
So Hold My Guns is a 501c3 nonprofit. It is liberty based. It is part of our firearms community. And what we do is partner with FFLs across the United States and provide voluntary firearm storage in times of need. And times of need can be anything from deployment to like a housing transition to going through a difficult divorce or helping someone who is housing a foster child or even a mental health crisis in the home. And it doesn't even have to be the gun owner. It can be someone else in the home that's experiencing a crisis. And our gun shop partners, they welcome their customers and treat them with dignity and respect. They don't ask why the firearms are being stored. And it is a way that meets the needs of gun owners who need firearm storage, but perhaps don't have friends or family members who can help them when offsite storage is needed. And last year we stored 144 firearms. That was up from 5 the previous year.
Wow.
And we have 9 storage partners in 8 states. And it's really beautiful to hear the stories of people who've used our service and have made life-affirming choices, gotten back on their feet after difficult times. So if you want more of this good thing in our community, in a way that saves lives, protects property, and preserves rights. We're asking folks to go to givesendgo.com/holdmygunsorg and donate. Because funding has been very low this year and we rely on grassroots funding, we do not receive federal grants. We're very particular about who we work with. We want values aligned sponsors. We've been limited to grassroots funding this year, and it has been at a place where the board is trying to decide how best to move forward. And so they've said we have until October 18th to meet that fundraising goal for this year. We're at, we need to raise $45,000 in just a few days by October 18th. So, but again, we've put out the call several times and it's just a difficult year for people. And now we're up against hurricane season too.
Yeah.
So I think, you know, something that's on my mind as the founder of Hold My Guns is, since we did the heavy lifting and we've created a process that now even the ATF had to recognize, and they rolled it out in an open letter to all FFLs in July of 2023, the process for storing firearms. The question is, if any FFL can now offer firearm storage, why does Hold My Guns need to continue? Like, we've essentially worked ourselves out of the job. And in a way, you can't stop the signal, right? To like borrow from Serenity. It's out there. But on the other hand, because there are a lot of other FFLs that are offering this service, I think we have an opportunity to kind of evolve a little bit. That's what I hope we can do, is evolve instead of dissolve. And what we can do is emphasize things like the preservation of rights, which is something that others in the suicide prevention space are not really focused on. And we can continue to protect the privacy of people who are using the service through a Hold My Guns partner. And we can advocate for changes in legislation that actually make an obstacle for people to store their firearms. Like, for example, there was an assault weapons ban that happened in Washington state. And the outcome of that was that there were firearms being stored by our Washington partner that they had to give back to their customer who wasn't ready to take those firearms back because of the law change. And so as an organization that cares about preserving liberty, we have a unique opportunity to push back, which is something that other organizations in the suicide prevention space, especially who care about firearm storage, they don't care about rights. So anyway, that's how I want to evolve the organization, assuming we can get funding, and just continue to encourage our community and be a voice for rights. And I hope I get the chance to do that.
Sure.
It's interesting. I remember when you first came up with this idea, excuse me, and I thought, well, what a great idea. What have been, and I'm sure you have a way to argue these points away. I know I've had conversations too, but what are some of the biggest pushbacks that you get from either FFLs who you might be talking about becoming part of this movement, or about people that might want to use a service, you know, like someone would store the guns for? What are some of the common pushbacks, and what are some of the, of course, the solutions you've offered them or answers you give them back?
I think the most common one that I hear is from people who say things like, well, I have a gun safe, so why would I ever need to store off site? And so I have two answers for that. The first one is, what good is your gun safe going to be if your house burns down? Like, we help people when they have a flood or fire or other damage to their home, and literally the gun safe is the only thing left, or they're having restoration work done because they've had a situation like that. And the policy of the restoration crew is you can't have firearms in the same room where we're going to be working. We actually experienced that ourselves in April when our home experienced some intrusive water that did a lot of water damage. So I don't think people have thought through a plan for firearms if literally the only thing left standing is their safe. The other thing is that people take for granted that they might have friends or family members who can legally and logistically store firearms for them. And they don't realize that there are many people in our community who just don't have connections like that. And so I would say, instead of just saying, well, I don't need that service, understand that there are people in our community who do need this service. And, you know, like, open your mind a little bit. Are you willing to store firearms for some other person in our firearms community you've never met before? Not a lot of people are willing to do that, or can lawfully do a transfer, depending on the situation and the state, right? So I encourage people to open their mind a little bit. And our goal is to look out for our own in our community in a way that we can be compassionate, but also preserve rights. Other objections that I hear, gun shops are concerned about liability, but the cool thing is that we work with Joshua Prince, who's one of the best Second Amendment attorneys out there, and his contract helps to protect FFLs from liability with hold harmless clauses in that, and it also protects the privacy of the customers as well. I think something I'd like to see if we can, again, evolve instead of dissolve is I'd like to see an expansion of locker service available. It is a way that people can rent space. It's essentially like renting a home or renting an apartment. That space that you rent belongs to you and it's your domain, and you can put in there whatever you like. And I think that especially as an enthusiast for privately manufactured firearms, that's one of the obstacles that people run into. If you bring your firearm in for custodial storage, the ATF now requires if it goes into the A&D logbook that has to be serialized. So what do you do if you need firearm storage, but you don't want an FFL to be defacing your firearm by, someone taking out their engraver
etching pen.
and etching with really
Yeah.
bad handwriting a serial number on your privately manufactured firearm that you've invested in. So
Yeah.
by using a storage locker is a lawful way to get around that, and it creates plausible deniability for the FFL while at the same time being compliant to regulation. So I'd like to see that grow as well.
And to touch on that too, being a Type 7 Class 2 FFL myself, I've gone through this building my own guns where it's got to be a certain depth. So like the etching pens and the engravers don't do the job. I had to invest in a $4,000 fiber laser engraver just to be able to be in compliance with the ATF. So if anybody needs fiber laser engraving out there, I'm trying to recoup my investment. So
Ooh, okay. All right. Keep that in mind.
but no,
Yeah, gotta love the government to put forth edicts that will price people out of doing
absolutely
a simple task.
absolutely.
Yes. And I think it's really interesting because they put out this storage letter in July of 2023, which is if you look up open letter on firearm storage, you can find it, and ATF if that's what your search terms are. But they also have in there things like NFA items that you have to reapply for your stamp. So if you think about how many times you're paying $200 to like you purchase it, then you take it to the FFL, there's another stamp that has to happen with that transfer, and then it comes back, and then you have to get approved and pay again.
Yeah.
And so again, we have an opportunity to push back against some of this just bogus procedures that, here apparently you're trying to help people, but they're actually making it harder for people to prevent unauthorized access and to prevent suicide and other things that can come with that. So yeah, it's very frustrating, and some of the pushback I think that people give are they're good things to be pushing back against. It's a kind of like a righteous anger, right? To be upset at some of these obstacles that in the name of safety actually make it harder for people to be safe. And so I love hearing constructive criticism, and I like to point out that a lot of the obstacles that we have and that we face and that we're working to overcome are because of gun control in the first place. Because how great would it be just to be able, honestly, to give your firearm to a trusted friend and not have to go through red tape? And I would love to see just kind of like calling out people in the public health space that are trying to create more and more rules that actually make it harder to prevent suicide, which is the number one cause of firearms related deaths. And it's such a great way and opportunity to call people out on that from a policy perspective.
For sure. You had mentioned foster care earlier, and I didn't even think about
Yes.
it. I think but and I know you, Clint, but we haven't renewed in a couple of years, but we were foster parents for a good 6 or 8 years, something like that, and we've had roughly 12 to 14 kids come through the house in all those years.
Wow.
But yeah, that it just made me think because when we went through the process, like I've got hundreds of guns, and they're like, "Yep, you got to list every single gun, make, model, caliber, serial number," and I'm like, okay, so it fell. And then when they came to do like the house inspections and stuff, my wife's like, make sure you lock all the guns up. I'm like, well, they're already locked up. But it's just it's interesting how the government finds another way to disqualify you for a good service, a good thing you want to do, and just because you have guns or they're worried about them.
Yes. And I think that there can be a case made for if you have a foster child who has a history of violence and they're an at-risk child, obviously you don't want them to have access to your
Right.
firearms. But the part that frustrates me is that I have seen cases where gun owners, they have to completely get rid of firearms in their house, and the social workers even look in the firearms safe and do a search in the home to verify that there are no firearms in the house.
Wow.
And so what I would really love is for wonderful liberty-loving people in our community to be able to actually look out for the kids that need it. Like, I would so much rather that kids in need went to people that were actually caring about their rights and their dignity and that wanted them to have a life that was vibrant and worth living. And those are the very people in our community who have firearms, right? So, if we can help out in a way that helps them to be compliant, but that they're not actually having to sell their firearms or, take them somewhere where they're not going to be treated well and their investments are going to be damaged while they're temporarily providing housing to an at-risk foster child, then that equips our community to be able to serve in that way, to serve children who need safe housing.
Yeah, absolutely. There's a lot of them out there.
Seems kind of one-dimensional to me. I mean, they're making sure there's no guns in the house, but yet there's probably car keys and sharp knives and cleaning products and
open outlet holes
and
yes,
and
absolutely.
matches. Yeah.
And crappy parents and crappy foster parents.
Well, and the last episode we discussed how statistically speaking, you're much more likely to get killed by a ghost bat than a ghost gun.
Yeah.
So it is. Yeah, the one-dimensionalness of gun control is really exposes that it's not about saving lives; it's about the control aspect of it.
I'm always in favor of controlling guns in my hands.
Yes.
So what can we do to get the word out more? Is there any other than just sending people there? Is there anything else we can do? Is there other organizations that are on the tipping point that we are familiar with? Or I mean, I have no problem posting it on PS&Ed's Facebook page and then obviously
post it everywhere.
Okay.
We're really down to the wire, and again, it's been a hard couple of years. I mean, we started during COVID, so and everybody's kind of in the same boat where we really are in a situation where people are demoralized. And I got into this discussion the other day where like someone was saying how depressed they were, and I was like, but you are trying to be positive. It's not that you're that you've really just like given up and that kind of thing. It's more like death by 1,000 paper cuts. And you like at every turn, just like Klint was just saying, like that firearms it's really not quite the problem, but it's just kind of it's like their token, like, oh, get the guns out of the house, but they're not thinking about other things that a foster child might harm themselves with, right? But we have a whole political public health culture that is just infringing on our rights, whether it's forced vaccinations or, just a whole list. And our whole culture is dealing with that right now.
Absolutely.
And so I think it's so important that we continue to push for Hold My Guns as much as possible, because the reality is that with us feeling this way as a culture, we want to make sure that rights are preserved and that people have an avenue to store their firearms safely, regardless of who's in the White House, regardless of what executive order comes out. And that was my talk at Gun Rights Policy Conference, was practicing self-governance and behaving in a way that you really become ungovernable because you're taking total ownership of your life. So I want to encourage people, like, as you get the message out there, this is not just about, our little organization. This is about the bigger picture of how can we practice self-governance regardless of who's in the White House, and how can we make sure that our community is equipped to do that? And there really is a need for firearm storage in some situations. So if people are watching this, share it on your blog, tag Hold My Guns in your posts. We're heavily shadow banned because we love firearms and we talk about liberty all the time. So every time we put a post out, only the people who directly follow us see it.
Hmm.
unless someone shares the post or does a where they tag us in a way that we're both owning that post. I forget what it's called. But it shows up on both feeds. We get viewers that way. And then also reaching out to potential sponsors. And what I found is a lot of folks in the firearms community and the industry, they want to give away firearms, but they're very slow to actually donate funds.
Yeah.
And that can be difficult because as a 501c3 and not an FFL myself, that means I have to involve another FFL and we have to go through all the red tape for an auction or a raffle or something like that. Thankfully, Cheryl Todd has been helpful with that.
That's great.
And wants to do more auctions in the future. But sharing it with potential sponsors and not just in the firearms community, but like your favorite hardware store or athletic store or first responders. They have stores around here that are, that first responders go to, things like that. Think outside of the box, like where's the shared audience and what other types of sponsors might be interested in Hold My Guns. And that would be so helpful. And then, if people are talking about policy in a room, which a lot of our friends are in those influential circles, remember Hold My Guns and remember that there are better answers out there besides legislation that infringes on rights. But instead, if we can equip and empower people to make responsible life-affirming choices, that's the right way to go, practicing self-governance. So
For sure.
again, sharing the Give, Send, Go, sharing on socials, write up a blog post, make a video post, share it on social media, but then also reminding people, hey, you can be a sponsor. And if you're talking to someone about policy, don't go down the path of red flag laws and legislation. Instead, say, actually, there's a better way that helps people to make good choices. And let's go that way. So those are some ideas. Maybe you guys have some more you'd like to share.
I actually just thought of, as you were talking, one time I had an employee, we put him in the safe. We locked him in the safe. So I just had this view of like a safe opening up and then somebody walking out of the safe saying, listen, if you got room for me to fit in your safe, you could put guns in there and hold somebody's guns. Neat little commercial.
That'd be a good visual,
Yeah.
Right?
But
Why would you put someone in a safe, man?
hey, nobody backs baby into a corner. Into a safe, maybe, but not a corner.
Wow. Nice.
Like what I did with that?
Yeah.
Cool. Well, we appreciate your support over the years and definitely want to do whatever we can to help. So we'll be promoting it out there, and we ask everybody out there to do everything you can to get the word out and pray and push traffic, as well as if you can chip in as little as much as you possibly can to help, and definitely keep this organization going because it's needed. And we've all had friends, or at least I know I have. I think Klint, you have as well. Friends that have committed suicide, or know of people that know of people that have committed suicide. So we definitely want to try to curb that as much as we can and self-regulate it within the industry versus government stepping in and making it happen. Because it's the gun is evil is what they will say, and we don't want them. We don't want that narrative to go that way.
They do. And we've heard so many stories from people that just knowing that Hold My Guns exists, and they'll even take the step of calling our storage partners and getting more information. And then they might make a decision to not store the firearms, but they still reach back out and say, like sometimes they do, sometimes they don't, but they reach back out and say, just knowing that Hold My Guns exists. When my friend told me about your service and I called and I got information, it's like it got rid of that thought in my mind.
Relief.
It answered, what do I do with my firearm if I'm not feeling like myself? And knowing that that existed, it helped me to have peace. And I met with my doctor or my therapist, and now we have a better safety plan in place. And I know what to do with firearms, whereas before I didn't, and it was a temptation to me. So the cool thing is that in addition to offering firearm storage through our licensed firearms retailers, we also provide QPR suicide prevention instruction in our community. That's been amazing to see. We've trained over 250 firearms instructors and range safety officers. I myself am a range safety officer, and I love equipping our community to be able to identify risk factors, but also elevate protective factors and to help someone out in the range who's struggling. We've heard stories of how people have used that training to save lives.
Great.
The other thing that we do is offer a free personal response plan. You can go to holdmyguns.org and download that. That's the same personal response plan I talked about at GRPC. But the goal is to equip people to be in the driver's seat and not along for the ride. And the more you can plan ahead for, if I'm ever in a crisis, God forbid, what's my plan for my firearms? Who are the people that I'm going to call that I can call anytime, day or night, if I need an encouraging word? And also, I encourage people to think about what medical and mental health professionals they would want if they're ever in crisis. Some people are like, well, that's never going to happen to me. But you never know. You never know if like your child will get into a car accident and die or become severely disabled. And what does that do as a parent, to your mental health? And so you have to practice situational awareness in your own home, just like you would when you're when you're training for a threat in a parking lot. And it's applying that same principle. You want to kind of take stock for what's going on in your home, and you want to have a plan in place, just like you would if you're facing a defensive threat. Part of that is making sure that you have medical mental health professionals that you trust, that you know are in alignment with your values, that are not going to be reporting you just because you have a firearm in their home and that's considered a risk factor. One of the worst scenarios that I've seen are gun owners who are in crisis and they go to the ER like they're supposed to be, right?
Yeah,
like, where do you go seek help if you're feeling thoughts of self-harm and it's in the middle of the night? But because they don't have a plan in place and they don't have their providers chosen, they're just at the whim of whoever's in the ER, the person who's in charge of psychiatry at the ER, for example. But if you go ahead of time, and maybe you go to like Doctors for Responsible Gun Ownership, which is under the umbrella of Second Amendment Foundation, for example, and you find providers that are in alignment with your values. I believe Walk the Talk, and there's a few others out there, also have counselors and providers that are trained in gun culture, and they understand these nuances. If you have that baseline appointment, even if you never need it, then if you're in crisis, you're not going to go through a list of providers not knowing who to choose. And you find one that maybe you like, and you pick up the phone and they're like, I'm sorry, we're not accepting new patients. Well, now you're screwed. You're in the ER and you're being told, find, a local provider, and there's no one available. So do that work ahead of time. It's just like creating a life insurance policy. You don't want to ever have to use it, but if you need it, you want to make sure it's rock solid. So that just like when you have muscle memory, which is why we train to meet a defensive threat, that you have a plan in place and you can quickly implement it if you or a loved one in your home is going through a crisis, and you have all your resources and you don't even have to think about it.
That's interesting. I never really kind of made that connection, but just like with the legal defense that we would want if we had to use a gun defender, I don't want to be at the whim of the public defender.
Yeah.
Exactly.
I want to make sure that I've got a kick-ass pro-gun Second Amendment criminal defense attorney that has won cases before.
Right.
So vetting out that type of person, if I ever needed to have mental health care, that makes perfect sense.
Go get a baseline appointment, and then they see you on a good day. And then you have an opportunity to actually, because, if you're going in there and you're crying and you're upset because you just lost your job, or you've got a serious medical problem, or someone was injured, or whatever it might be that just blindsided you, right? They don't know what you look like on a normal day. And so just getting that baseline appointment saying, hey, hopefully I'll never have to see you again. Or maybe you can use that appointment to say like, hey, I'm actually feeling pretty great. Let's get a baseline. Tell me about some things that I can look forward to in the next 5 years that I might need to look out for as I get older, something like that. And just have fun with it. But now you are their patient. And now if you go to the ER and you have a crisis, you can say, I want to make sure that I have congruency of care. We can all agree on that. We wouldn't want to go against what my preferred provider would say. I'm already under their care. And now you've got, like, they have to abide by that.
That makes sense.
So, and I created that because I was a doula for 11 years.
Wow.
And I helped advocate for my birth clients in hospitals and birth centers and home births, but dealing with different scenarios where we wanted to make sure that the client's voice was heard, whether they were advocating for themselves or for their child. So that's why I created that personal response plan. So if these things, again, are resonating and you want more of this from Hold My Guns, go to givesendgo.com/holdmygunsorg and donate, because we'd love to continue to be able to serve our community in this way.
Very cool.
Excellent. Well, we'll
sure.
get the word out there the best that we can, and
Absolutely.
we'll
Okay.
support you the best that we can. This is a great organization, and most people aren't aware of the other services that
Right.
you provide, not just hooking someone up with an FFL to go store their guns, but there's so much more preventative,
Yes.
proactive measures that people can put into play.
Mm-hmm. Always great to hang out with you, ma'am.
Thank you. You guys as well. Are you anyone coming up for the machine gun shoot that Josh Prince is doing? I think it's
He-
October 26th.
Yeah, October 26th is my anniversary. Let's see, what is that?
He,
That would
is
be
he doing that at Bob
20.
Ramos' place?
Yeah, he
No, but
always does it.
that's another one coming up. I think that one's later in the fall. But
Okay.
this is his like biannual machine gun shoot. I think it's going to be I can look it up. I should have looked it up before I opened my mouth. But if you go to Josh Prince's blog, you'll see the details on it. And I plan to be there. So if anyone's
Okay.
looking at this and wants to say, hey, where are we going to find Sarah next? It will be there.
You said
All the
26th.
years I've been working with or beside or alongside of or around the corner from Josh on different issues. Never been to one of his machine gun shoots yet.
So fun.
I've always been like somewhere doing something. That's what happens when busy people do things.
That's right. I know. Yeah.
Yeah.
But it
Yeah,
is in my neck of the woods, so I try to go when I can.
Yeah, I'm teaching a 18-hour course that weekend. Darn it.
Yeah, I'm gonna play the anniversary card. 20.
Do that.
It'll be,
That's a safe bet, Clint.
it'll be
How many
28 years.
28 years. Look at
28
you.
years.
Yeah,
Oh,
we were
man.
shacked up for 3 before that, so I count those
Oh.
years.
Okay.
We would have got married sooner, but she would have lost like part of her financial whatever at college. I didn't go to college. I think school's for fools.
Well,
You
it
just
depends
sounded
on
I
what
went to
you're
a trade school. I went to a trade
it
school.
depends on what
says-
you're trying to do. Yeah,
Yeah,
I don't want
it
to hear my
depends, yeah.
brain surgeon saying schools for
Oh,
fools.
that's-
Yeah, that's
right?
probably you wouldn't
Yeah.
want to go to a brain surgeon that says schools are full.
Right.
But then again, they did do bloodletting and leeches and stuff.
That's
Yeah.
true.
So-
Yes.
and they taught that in
have to
school.
start somewhere. Right.
this is
Well,
a-
congratulations on that anniversary. That's awesome.
Oh,
Very
thank
cool.
you. Yeah.
Yeah. Tom and I just celebrated 25 years. So
Nice.
Cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, we just
Look
hit
at that. Yeah,
33.
we're all kind of the same.
33?
Yeah. He's got us
Yeah?
all beat.
33
Has us all beat.
back in August.
Yeah, we're like
Congrats.
unicorns. We're all kind of the same age, and we were probably all raised by single parents. Maybe not, but
I
most of
wasn't.
the people
I wasn't.
our age were.
Yeah.
And so it's good to see that there are some people in their late 40s, early 50s that still are married for as long as we have been.
Yes. Yeah, it is kind of a unicorn thing, but isn't it fun though? Like a lot of our friends are just starting out and they have like really little children
Mm.
and they're like, mid 40s and it's hilarious. And I'm like, my kids are in their 20s. So
Now we
feels
waited
good.
12 years. We had Augie, but here's one for you.
Yeah.
This may be another unicorn horn, and then we wouldn't be unicorns anymore.
Isn't it
Do
this?
any of you here have ink tattoos?
I don't.
I don't
Not a-
either. There's
Not
3 of
not
us.
a one.
3 Gen Xers
Really?
with no tattoos. That's unicorn material right there too.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
There's there's like some religious reasons why I have chosen not to do that. I've definitely thought about it, but I also don't know how I would feel about something being permanent or having something that could really identify me. I don't know. I could kind of go back and forth on that. But
Yeah.
actually, one of my kids has several tattoos. So it's not like
Same with
a
ours.
situation where I've been like, absolutely never. But for me, I've just decided not to do that.
yeah.
Yeah.
So
One of ours did tattoos, and she did some tattoos. She did it on the side, and
did tattoos, or
Yeah,
she
made
does them for
Yeah,
other
she
people?
does
Okay.
them. Yeah, so she did some of her own, and she did some for other people. But she ended up convincing my wife to get one, and she started it, and my wife couldn't handle the pain, so she's just like, "No, stop!" And so she's got
Oh, no.
a little line on her back, and so my wife's got a tattoo, but it's like about that big, and it's just like a line, and that was the end of it.
It's a line.
Yeah.
Mhm. That's
It's
cool.
a minus sign.
About that.
I have right here. I don't know if you can see right here. I got these spots. That's
Uh-huh.
actually black powder.
Oh,
I have black powder in my skin.
You
Yeah.
got a 2A tattoo. That's your 2A.
Yeah, I say that I got black powder in my veins.
do you have a 2A tattoo, Matt?
Oh, no, I have no tattoos.
I
Oh, you mean
have a
like, did I get in? No.
Burnt
okay.
or okay.
Yeah, I don't think
I
so.
I actually have on my knee, I was grazed with a round from an AK-47.
Wow.
And
Is it a weird
my
ricochet or someone did something
yes,
bonehead?
it was well both. So my father shot a feral cat that was out trying to kill our litter of kittens, and he used his firearm and it ricocheted off of stainless steel part bins and it grazed my knee. And he took a look at it and like took a shop rag and like put it over my knee and like held on to it. And he's like, "Don't tell your mom. It's going to be fine. It's just grazed. It's okay."
You're
So,
gonna
but I still
live.
have a scar on
Yeah.
my
Wow.
knee.
Well, that could have
So
gone
from
so
that
different.
ricochet, it could have been a lot worse.
Yeah.
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 Well,
Well,
divine
And what's
intervention
really
is absolutely a thing.
It is. What's really awful, and see, this is being recorded, but I have to say this is a mangy feral cat. This was not like somebody's pet, but we had dug a hole and buried it, and then the neighbor's dog
look it up.
dug it up and then put this
Oh,
dead cat on the neighbor's porch that had
Wow.
a big hole in its head. Anyway, you know, when you
Wow.
live on a farm, things like that
That's
happen.
it. That's it. My
yeah.
wife's telling me to go out and shoot the roosters all the time.
Those roosters.
We got too
Oh
many
my
of them, and they're
goodness.
like one crows, the other one crows, another one, another. It's just all day long, and my
The
wife's like
Yeah. That,
sick
tourists.
of it. I
yeah.
tune
That
it out
whole
Yes.
after a while.
they crow at sunrise is BS.
Yep.
They crow all
All
day and
day
all
long.
night. Yeah.
Hmm.
So we
Yep.
all own chickens too.
Yeah.
We
So we're
do.
all Gen Xers, been married over 20 years plus, no tattoos, and we own chickens.
Yep.
We should start a new
Whoa.
club.
Yeah. The Gen
We have
X
golden red chickens.
chickers. We have a mutiny of chickens, a bunch of mutts.
Nice.
Yeah,
Cool.
I'm down to one.
Have
We lost two in an event that took place a month ago. But
In an
when this
event.
one dies, I'm going to wait a season and
Mhm.
we'll get six more. We do really well with six.
sounds like you need an
Yeah,
AK-47, Clint.
you do. Avoid part spins in the garage though. Like if you're hunting the cat. Um, we also just started doing meat rabbits and we're getting ready to breed those. And
Nice.
then yeah, we
You
have
got,
2 does and a buck.
do you have,
That's a good name for a band, Meat Rabbits.
I thought you were going to say 2 does and a buck. Do you have,
No,
you ha-
that's a musical
honeybees?
act at a Holiday Inn.
Do you have honeybees?
I don't have honeybees. I know you do.
Yes.
Um,
We're up to
and
13
you know what?
hives.
I credit you, Matt, because there was a year that we were at SHOT and I got really, really sick. And before that, I think you were telling us how you use bee propolis
Propolis tincture.
and yeah, and a tincture. And I actually went out and bought some because I mean, like you live far away, so I couldn't just go get some
It's all
from
right.
you. But I got a nasal spray with the bee propolis and I have not been sick since doing that. So every
Good.
time I know I'm going to be like in a crowd of people,
Yep.
I just use that the morning of, and I haven't gotten sick yet. So
Sweet.
I give you the credit for that. Don't get the crud.
Nope. Everywhere I go, I bring a little bottle of bee propolis tincture with me in my bag that I create with.
Yes.
Well, I can't give the recipe away because then I'd have to. Anyway,
Secret. Yes.
yep,
But it works.
it does.
And
It
that was a
works
Matt
great.
Mallory trick.
Yep.
Yeah.
Any kind of open wound, any kind of germs, it kills germs. Not sure if it's the propolis or if it's the Everclear.
Propolis. I was saying it wrong. Yeah.
Everclear.
That's how you
Could
dilute
be
it.
that too. Yeah. I don't think mine has Everclear in it. I would feel that, but maybe that's you get the extra zing.
Yeah, you
Right.
could do it with apple cider vinegar too, but that doesn't last as long. The Everclear lasts a long time.
Okay. See, we're learning things here.
Absolutely. Cool.
It's always a pleasure to have you on the show.
It is.
You too. I
Yeah.
appreciate it, guys.
Yeah.
Yeah, check out holdmyguns.org. We have a new website. The same folks that designed the Gun Collective's website
Awesome.
just did ours. They donated some of their time. So check that out.
That's
And there's plenty of space on there for sponsors.
Good.
So get the word out in the next few days.
Well, I know
Hold My Guns needs sponsors.
we've had you up on I think we've had you up on our Meet the Pressers website for many, many, many years. I think
You have.
Almost ever-ish.
yeah, I think so. Like right in the beginning.
Yeah.
I appreciate that. Yeah, I don't think people realize how long we've been around, like, and the amount of work that it has gone into this and that kind of a thing. But you guys were actually one of the first to interview me. And
Really?
was that like in 2019 or 2020? I can't remember if we were.
2019. It was before.
Yes.
Yeah, it was before COVID.
Yes. It was even before we became an official 501c3. So
Wow.
you guys knew a good thing when you saw it, I guess.
Yes, we did. Yes, we did.
Good job.
Or you did.
Ooh, there you go. That's a good spin.
Whoa.
That's a good spin.
Yes.
Yeah.
Mhm.
All righty, ma'am.
You guys are the best.
Thank
Always
you.
good to see you. Thank
Thank
you.
you.
All right. Take care.
Yep. Stay safe.
There's lots of sponsors to make this show possible, like Mantis.
Check them out and give them your business.
Meet the Pressers is brought to you by Mantis X. Mantis X helps shooters suck less. Next Level Training. Makers of CERT training products. Saber Red. Saber Red has been making men and women cry since 1975. Meet the Pressers is also brought to you by these fine companies, shows, and organizations. Thank you.
Thank you for watching Meet the Pressers.